Welcome back. Okay, so I've pointed out the obvious basics in how to set up your HDRI and your global illumination. You can do it just with lights. Choose different coloured lights rather than doing HDRI. Have a small array of lights that are turned off, change their emitter values, things like that. I'm not going to bother for the minute though. Next, materials. So the first material we're going to look at is the RateRace. Now if we select our RateRace material here and assign it and press F9, it looks like it's applied perfectly normal when it comes to the render. But RateRace material will not work with vray. That's why we're getting that funky colour. We cannot get reflections, for example. So if I change my reflection value here, oops, and then hit render again, we're not going to get lots and lots of pretty reflections from our object. vray does not handle the RateRace code that Max produces. So what are we going to do when it comes to reflections? Well, even if you're using vray free, it does have the ability to handle reflections. It does that through use of assigning a map to the reflect slot. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this in the standard first, which I'm going to call simple reflect, and I'm going to make a very shiny material. So say about 320 by about 81. Not going to soften it at all. I'm going to change it to an anisotropic if I can. There we are. I can never pronounce that right, but who cares? Crank up the anisotropy. Particularly useful if you're doing things like metal panels is anisotropy. There we go. And change the orientation a little bit. Now, down in maps here, if I go to my reflection, I can click vray map, reflect. There we go. And if I bung that in there now and hit F9, it'll take a little bit longer to do, but you'll see that we start getting some amazing reflections coming off it. So just give it a moment. If you look at the top, of course, it's reflecting pure white as well. There we go. So that's a pure reflect. Now, obviously, you're not going to want that much of a reflect, and also we can bung in our environment map if we want. Have a quick peek. And that will render the environment map on top of the white. Now, we've also got the ability to refract, so we could see through it. So, if I do this, can't remember if I actually applied the map or not. Actually, we'll soon see. I don't think I did. Hang on. So we've got the ability to reflect and refract, and on top of that we've got the ability to build some complicated looking shaders. So anyway, I'll just let this get on with what it was doing, and then we'll move on to how to build ourselves a little vray material, because these ones are pretty basic and not much fun. So, back up, and let's assign this material to everything. I'm going to take my first material slot and I'm going to make it a vray material. There we are. Now for the diffuse, change it to something like a nice blue, because I like blue. There we go. And we can change our reflect value to something like a fall off. There we go. And if we invert those, it reflects more at the front than the side, or vice versa. I'm going to grade that up. That way we're going to get minimal reflection value on there. Now then, I can change the glossiness on this, so I'm going to change this to about 0.7. Now, as you see, as we get less from 10, we actually start to get our little glossy areas here. That's because one's pure, we're not going to see any. Let's change it to about 0.85. There you go, you can see they're tightening out. If we change it to about 0.5, we're going to end up with larger. So, change about 0.75 again, you can just see them there. And reduce the subdivisions, you do not need 50. So, reduce the subdivisions down to say about 24 for the moment. You can also have Fresnel reflections. That's for you guys who like Fresnel, of course. I've never been that big a fan of it. So, reflect. We've got it all assigned. Let's hit F9. And we should see some beautiful mad blues going on here. Now, because I brought the subdivisions right down, like I did, it won't take quite as long to render as it would if we had 50 on. But bear in mind, I'm using 4 processors here. And because of that, it's going to render faster on my machine than it will if you're fairly new to Macs and you're using, you know, an AMD 1800 or whatever. So just wait for this to finish rendering off, and we'll have a look at our simple first results. Remember, you can also lower, by the way, the global illumination value, and I'll be showing you how to tweak that in the next part as soon as this is rendered. We'll also stick an environment on the back of this. So as you can see, this is the finished model here. So let's compare this to our original. There you go. And apart from having zoomed in just a little bit more than on this one, you can see the major differences that have occurred. Okay, so I've shown you how to do this bit, and we'll move on to a couple of other bits in the next segment.